It's like Tumut takes two. All right, thank you very much for coming. The purpose of tonight is to give the community a little bit of an information update, and mixing with the RFS and Pete Jones, right? That's solely about the fire front, what our expectations are moving forward over the next week or so. What we'll do after that is, we've got some key people here. What we'll do after that is, our General Manager from Council is going to give you a quick overview of power and utilities and what that looks like moving forward over the next few weeks. Obviously significant damage has been done and needs to be repaired, and that's a big part of this recovery process. Then the other key people here will introduce themselves to you, okay? And then once that's finished, we'll open the floor to questions from you and any questions you have for these guys in their specific areas they're responsible for. All right, so my role at the moment is the liaison, which means we coordinate. The lead agency for this emergency is the Rural Fire Service. The liaison coordinates government agencies under that banner to support them, and to fix any other problems that arise throughout the emergency process. Okay, but the lead agency is Rural Fire Service, okay, and they're controlling what's happening at the moment. Our job, with all these functional areas and more, is simply to provide them with support and to solve problems in the community as this happens. We do the impact assessment to say what's occurred, what the damage has done, and then we roll into the recovery process, which is how to fix our communities and make them stronger following this emergency. Okay, so I'll introduce you to Peter Jones from the Rural Fire Service to explain what this map means for us over the next week.
Thank you. So I'm going to talk to this map. This is our operational map called, or it's actually called the COP, it's our Common Operating Picture. I'll talk about where the fire is and what's going on, but just a bit to understand, this is live data from the field and how it actually looks. So the black dots are edges that are out, if that makes sense. So they're not actually contained with the edges that are out. The red dots are where there is still active fire. So I'll just sort of move around. So we're looking at the top of Bangadang there and the Snowy Mountains Highway west of Adelong. There's a lot of activity still there on that western side of Ellerslie Nature Reserve, and that's where our focus has been the last couple of days. We're trying to make sure there's a good control line to the north of that front, and to make sure the fire doesn't escape any further north. For the Grahamstown area and Adelong and potentially even further north onto the Hume Highway, we're just going to make sure we've got a very good control line around on the side. So this is the finger that actually went into Adelong, off through Yabba Creek and into Adelong. As you see, it actually didn't impact Adelong Township. So Adelong Township is still okay, with the exception of a few issues here and there with regards to facilities and that sort of stuff. I'll just continue along the western edge for the time being. I'll just zoom out a bit. You're probably going to see when I zoom out that the dots don't come on. But if you imagine Westbrook Road and the western side of Ellerslie Range, we still have uncontained edge there. However, it is within its control line. So we have a control line, a dozer line along there, and crews working that edge. We're expecting weather conditions for the next 2 to 3 days to push very hard on that easterly side. On the westerly side. The easterly winds that will actually make that western side our potential threat for the next couple of days. Friday, we're expecting hot northwesterly winds again from the northwest, which will push it back to the east again. Those winds aren't going to be anywhere near as bad as what we've had over the previous days. So nothing like what we've experienced, but we've only got 4-day forecasting, so potentially we don't know what's really down the track a week or 2 weeks from now. Good to see some rain, I can tell you. So in terms of where the fire actually is, the little cookie cup hole is the Batlow area. Yes, we did have impact into Batlow, and we have lost about 17 properties in Batlow, some of them quite significant. The old Batlow Hospital, the Shell service station, the old man-made cannery, that's also been destroyed, and a number of homes in that property. We're still doing property impact assessments on the southern side of Batlow, around Kanama and back Kanama Road, and we are aware that there are a few properties there, about 95% complete in Batlow, so there's a bit more to do there. In terms of the fire itself, it's run through the bottom end of Gilmore Valley, right through to Larring Foreshores, and across the other side into the park. That's looking at Talbingo. We have lost a couple of homes, a couple of outbuildings, and a little bit of machinery infrastructure around Talbingo. Talbingo is, as I understand, fully restored with all their services. Am I getting a nod there? Yes, I believe so. There's still issues with the Snowy Mountains Highway, and access is only in to Talbingo if you're a resident. Bear with me a moment, I just have to drive this thing, I've got to get the zoom level right. So this is basically the western side down towards Taradale and western side of Tumbarumba. We've got a couple of fires, East Orney Creek fire, that is from the south of Tumbarumba. It's a different fire altogether from the Duns Road fire. That has the potential to come back and hit Tumbarumba again later in the piece, depending on when we get some southerly winds, but it's still uncontained on the northern flank. We do actually have a control arm, we're trying to hold that fire too. So there is still potential threat in that Tumbarumba area and along the River Road right through to Kennyburn, where possible, across the Gilmore Valley through to Larring Foreshore. We've got no real good hard edge where the fire front actually is, to the top of Sturgis Trail. So sort of, if you can see my pointer there, sort of in around here. I'll just zoom in a bit. So basically we need to lock this northern corner in here to ensure that this fire doesn't get back up into Tumut under a southerly influence. So areas around Gilmore Valley right through, and then we're working a bit of a strategy up in order to cut this fire off in the park, out down to Warragong and Blowering Cliffs. That is all dependent on how much rain we actually receive tonight. In terms of the fire itself, that's where we're at currently and what we're planning to do. We have a lot of support from a lot of agencies, including the ADF, who just have arrived the last few days. SES, you know, we've got anyone and everyone here to help us, and we certainly appreciate the community helping us. What I do want to say is, if you're expecting to get back into Batlow, you're going to have to wait some time. We've actually got a number of foot dangerous trees along the Batlow to the Tumut to Batlow Road, and we're trying to get as much of that cleared as we can before we can allow people to get in there. We're allowing escorted vehicles with regards to emergency services and agencies such as Essential Energy, Telstra and all those people to try and get some services back on, but Batlow does not have any services at all on at this point in time with limited mobile coverage. Adelong does have everything back up and running, except their water is unusable for drinking. You do need to boil it. Likewise, it will be for Tumbarumba. At this stage, I think that's probably where I'll leave my bit in regards to the fire and what we're intending to do. So it's really just an information update today. We are trying to get as many of the major roads open as we can, and I'm sure the other agencies will actually be able to pass on where we're at that stage. Thank you.
You can start rolling through your heads if you have any questions. If you're asking some questions tonight for the benefit of the group, if your questions have really...
Yeah, so you've got Morgan Coelho from Essential Energy, safety business partner for the southern region. So I look after the Central Murray, Riverina Snowy Alpine, from safe access of our crews to events like these. I'm one of the main lead hubs here in Tumut. Just a bit of a brief update of where we're focused on today. So today we focused on scoping a lot of the networking, included affected vegetation on our 66 kV line from Tumut to Tumbarumba, including Adelong and Batlow. As most of you are aware, if you're from Adelong, Adelong power was restored this morning. However, we have significant damage on the network from Adelong through to Batlow. This includes, we've got approximately, at this stage, 5 poles to replace and 5 spans of high voltage conductors with significant hazard tree vegetation that needs removing. So that was our focus point today is scoping. Currently, we have also today we've completed a scope of Talbingo Township itself, as well as Tumbarumba Township and the Gilmore Valley. Focus the scoping tomorrow as safe access allows. We aim to focus on Adelong Rural, including Yavin Creek, Mount Adra, Batlow Township and Tumbarumba Rural. So far from the work that we've scoped today, we have approximately 70 power poles to replace across that scoped network. We expect these numbers to increase as we begin to further inspect the rural feeders out of the outlying towns.
Hi, my name is Katrina Walsh. I'm the Tumut Facility Manager for the Tumut Hospital, and I guess my role in the EOC is I'm the representative for health. So just to give you an update where we're up to, both, most people would be aware, both Batlow and Tumbarumba Hospital have been evacuated. All the residents in the residential aged care areas of those hospitals have been relocated to various sites across our district. The hospitals have been closed for the acute presentations, but we do have Tumut Hospital fully functional in terms of ED emergency presentations. As a precaution, we also, Tumut inpatients have been relocated to a number of other sites. There is no concern as such that the hospital itself was going to be impacted. It was just more a precautionary measure for air quality and also some emergency backup generator supplies as well. So fully functional ED though, we have full medical coverage and there's no issues in terms of accessing medical coverage in Tumut at this stage.
Good evening everyone. My name's Gary Rodder. I'm the General Manager with Murray Local Land Services. I'm also here representing Riverina Local Land Services as well. We have the job throughout these areas of providing and supporting those in the fire affected zone with emergency fodder and emergency water. And also the not too pleasant job of actually assessing and euthanizing stock throughout that area as well. Over the last, today actually we've had crews in along the Yavin Creek, Batlow Road and Ellerslie area actually assessing and euthanizing stock. Over the last 5 days or so we've been running fodder into some of those areas, particularly around the Yavin Creek and also some emergency water. Up to date, access to the fire ground has actually been quite limited, as you would imagine. We've been working closely with the Rural Fire Service in working out where we can get to, and they've been very, very good at helping us and escorting us into areas. Obviously, over the next couple of days, as access to the fire ground increases, we expect to the level of damage to the stock through those areas and what we're finding and assessing in there to climb quite substantially. But anyway, that's us, and I'll pass to the next one.
Thank you. James Hayes on the Mayor of Snowy Valleys. I've got 2 councillors here. I've got Councillor Cor Smith, Councillor Kate Cross sitting in the front row, and will be available after to speak.
My name is Joe McGurr. I'm the local state member. I just first of all wish to acknowledge you and thank you for coming, and also acknowledge that it's a time of great anxiety for people, and I know people want to return to their communities, and we need to make sure it happens as soon as possible, but we also have got to do that in a safe way, and I know the agencies are working very hard on that. I just do want to thank you and acknowledge the concerns and distress that everyone's going through. I also want to thank the agencies involved, particularly the Rural Fire Service and the police. Having seen what I've seen, I think they've done a great job. Yes, we've had loss of life, I know, and property, but given the circumstance on Saturday, I think it could have been a lot worse, and so I do want to acknowledge that. While we still have a fire situation, we do need to start thinking about recovery, and I do want to assure you that that's front of mind for me and for the government. I've spoken to the Premier, and they've appointed a recovery coordinator. There'll be a meeting of local MPs tomorrow, and that process will get underway. Obviously, while there's still a fire zone, we need to be careful, but clearly communities will need support. those particularly have lost property and livelihood.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Greg McPherson. I'm from Fire Brigade up in Sydney, where we now conducting the JTF 1100 to help support the Rural Fire Service and the activities that are needed on the front line to help and assist with the bushfires and the recovery. We're also here to help with the communication struggles between interagencies and set troops to task and machinery if needed, and where the Rural Fire Service needs fit best. That's it.
Thanks everyone. I'd like to thank you for your patience over the last while. I can't even remember how many days it is now. I'm Matthew Hyde, I'm the General Manager for the Snowy Valleys Council. Just going to give you a bit of an update on roads and essential services in the area. So I'll start off with RMS roads. They're currently doing surveillance work on all the roads in the area that have been impacted by the fires. The Batlow road is closed from the Snowy Mountains Highway through to Tumbarumba at the moment. The Batlow road from the Snowy Mountains Highways to Batlow is currently being assessed. There are no permits for travel on any of these roads at the moment. The Snowy Mountains Highway is open between Adelong and Tumut to all traffic. The Snowy Mountains Highway is open from Tumut to Talbingo, but for local traffic only. The road is manned and proof of residency will be required to travel on this road. So the road is yet to be assessed, and we ask people to use caution if they are using that road, and follow the directions and only travel for essential purposes along that road. Currently all access to Tumut and surrounding areas is via the Go Cup Road. The Grahamstown Road, Tumbalong Road to the Hume Highway to Adelong is now open to all traffic. Roads will not be reopened until they're assessed as being safe. And if people can just monitor the live traffic app for updates on road closures. We're trying to get that updated as quickly as we possibly can. And just noting that there is some information out there that the roads appear to be clear in some areas. We are finding that trees are still falling because they're damaged by fire. You've heard from Essential Energy, there's power lines down. There's a whole lot of other safety concerns along those roads. In relation to our infrastructure for water, Tumut and Talbingo are fine. However, in Adelong, Batlow and Tumbarumba, we have boil water notices in there. To meet the health requirements, it'll probably be a couple of weeks before those boil water notices are removed. We've had a look at the infrastructure on all of our sites already, and there hasn't been any substantial damage to any of that infrastructure. We did put a priority on getting more water pumped out in those areas, and we sacrificed the water quality for that. So that's meant it's going to be a little while before the chlorination process takes effect, and that water's safe to drink again. So just a reminder, Tumut and Talbingo are okay. It's Adelong, Batlow and Tumba that you need to boil water. Waste transfer stations, Tumut will be open as normal. Tumba is open daily between 8 and 5 for those people in that community at the moment. Batlow is closed until further notice. Adelong is closed until further notice, and we're just looking into Talbingo at the moment to see what we can do. In regards to Telstra, it's a bit of a movement in this area. Sometimes we're getting systems up and going and they're failing, and then we're getting them back up and going. As I left the office, Adelong Mobile was up and working, Batlow was up and working, Tumba's up and working intermittently, but obviously going down every now and then, so we're looking into those issues. Tumut's okay, and Talbingo, we're just working on progress on that one at the moment. Also letting you know that the first meeting of the Recovery Committee has been planned for this Friday. I'm contacting the members of that committee at the moment, and we're hopeful to set up, as well as that, a geographical subgroup that will provide advisory advice back into that recovery committee. So a lot of our recovery actions have already started.
Everyone to step up a bit closer so people can see you. I'm not sure the best way to coordinate this. Some questions from the audience. I might repeat them and then hand the microphone to the relevant Agency. So the young lady in the middle. Just a big voice, I'm a bit hard of hearing. Do we have a second mic? Three, righto.
Thank you. Did I understand you right that Talbingo Power has been restored?
Not at this stage, no.
Any indication of when we could
No,
expect
so
that?
we've done a scoping work with the township itself and are aware of the network of repairs that require, but however there is significant...
You're going to dry grass most likely. Is there any way that we can get escort or some consideration so we can get back to our properties before perhaps other people to look for our livestock? I'm from up near Batlow. I would be needing to use either the Batlow or the Gilmore Road.
I'll pass that to LLS, but what I might suggest, sir, is if you talk to LLS offline after this, we might see if we can come up with some solutions for your problem.
Yeah, if I just may, I think there's two parts to that question there. The first part of the question is whether you're able to access certain roads to get back into your property. And I'd suggest that we have to defer that back to probably council and the RFS, etc., for those roads to be opened or otherwise. But as far as your stock, particularly where you've been burnt out and you don't have any grass, etc. left, LLS and DPI are running a 1-800 number. I have a number of pamphlets here that I'll leave for you. Yep, you're already on that. Right, okay, so you're logged onto that. So that will enable you to get access to some emergency fodder for up to 3 days. So that's, I guess, available to all affected landholders in the fire scar area. But I think there's the other question about whether you can get access into your property, which LLS is also under the instructions of the RFS and others as to where we can get to.
But I believe it possibly could be. We still have family and friends up there in sensitive areas outside Batlow where this fire is still a threat. Who do we see? We spoke to the Marks and Exchange to supply the road block, but they will need fuel. They need fuel for generators, they need fuel for the pumps. And without that they have no water. So if it comes back, they have no water. So I don't know who fix that.
Thank you. We're aware that fuel's not available in Batlow now, so we'll have a talk about how we can get that fuel into generators, etc. We do have fuel going into these areas for the equipment operating. It's just a matter of trying to coordinate that. So
Yeah, I knew the main guys will have the fuel, but the guys out on the farm everywhere had a certain limited amount.
yeah, there's a lot of logistics difficulties. I take your concern on, but we've got to make sure the safety of people getting to the fuel and getting back. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, Trina, we'll just select the questions from up here, if that's okay.
What sort of a time frame are we looking at? Days or weeks?
Just to confirm, is that regarding safe access or electricity supply?
He's talking about Peter Jones.
Yeah, so, if I might just say, it's just to enable us to get up there to perhaps just have a look. We know our properties, there's a community up there, we know our properties are been saved, and we're thankful to the RFS and everybody who did that for us. But it would be nice to be able to just go in and do a check, do a final tick off, and then get out, not be in your way. But we understand if it's not possible, it's not possible. But the big question is when, not significant time. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure when that will be. We're actually trying to clear the roads as we speak. That's the issue at this point in time. We need to make sure no trees are going to come down on a truck or a person. The Forestry Corporation has called in all favours and got all of their forestry helpers in there. We've got fellow butchers and forwarders pulling trees off the road and laying them down so they don't fall. And they started on Batlow Road from Tumut to Batlow today. That's the first stage, and then they'll move down to Batlow Road to Tumbarumba. At this stage, I can't see the road south of Batlow being open until at least the weekend. That may happen sooner than we think. It might happen in the next couple of days, depending on how well they're going. So there's a little bit to do on Batlow to Tumbarumba Road. We'll probably only allow resident access once it is open, until we get a bit more of a handle on some services into Batlow proper, but only residents to come in and out to feed their stock. 2 other RFS strike teams in the town day and night, while still mopping up and doing what they have to do. I do want to make people aware that if and when you do go back into Batlow, a number of these homes did contain asbestos, the ones that we have lost, particularly the hospital, the old hospital, and the cannery. Obviously, most of that was removed, but there is some potential asbestos risks in that town that we do need to deal with as well. So fire and rescue will be dealing that in terms of hazmat and decontaminating what they need to decontaminate before we can allow people close into those areas. Yeah, that's fine.
In Tumut and the outlying areas, but anyone that really needs to talk, I'm available for. I'm good for coffee, I'm good for time. So, come and seek me out.
But again, staff fatigue, staff safety, staff mental health, when these staff have been working for, I think it's welcome to day 12, and some of these people have been putting in 20, 21-hour days. That is foremost in our minds now. We are making efforts between all our agencies to roll our staff over, to try our best to force them to take breaks and to look after their mental health. It's not always easy when people are highly committed to their local communities, but it is foremost on our mind, and we look at staff fatigue and welfare every day.
Yeah, in terms of that sort of stuff, that's probably a few days away yet before we're at that level. So we've just got to get this road sorted before we can allow further people in.
Okay, thanks.
Bureaucrats and uniforms to you. Members working in all our teams have been working while their house has been affected by fire. I personally haven't been to my house for 5 days, so we understand that you want to get back there and see your property. I've had police officers with their houses burnt down, we've had ambulance officers at Batlow with their houses burnt down, so we have full empathy for how you're feeling. We know you want to get back to your homes, but we have overriding responsibilities to make that happen safely. Right? We have huge issues with power and utility, such as the link road to Cabramurra and making sure T1, T2 and T3 keep functioning so we have power across the state. So there's a range of huge issues. I acknowledge that you're struggling. We're no different to you, and we're putting in big efforts to try to make those things happen. And that's why we're here today to talk to you. But we understand how you're feeling.
The advice down there is to take your time. Don't get in and clean up fast. Contact your insurance company. Get your legal advice. You're going to have to get a whole lot of permits for demolition. We've got to have disposal sites up and going for the asbestos. Take your time in doing this process. Make sure you're getting photos. Once the recovery centre is up and going, we'll be putting out formal advice on this, on how to go about that process. So please don't rush into it. I know you've got an overwhelming need to get in and get something done, but please follow the advice, because it's going to be a very involved process.
Okay, where do you find that information, please? Where will that information be published?
We're just putting it together now, so yeah, as soon as we've got it available, we'll be posting it on our website. We'll put some information out on Facebook.
I'll make sure Dave gets that information and gets it read across the radio as well, but you do need to make sure, remember we are still in the operational phase of the fire. Recovery is just starting, but we're probably, that normally takes 1 or 2 weeks behind the main firefight. So just bear with us.
Our first recovery meeting's on Friday.